Hello everybody, welcome back to our next training video. My name is Rex Robichaud. I'm the GIS Administrator here at Virginia DEQ, and today we're going to take a look at one of the tools we make available for pulling in external data and comparing it or contrasting it and visualizing it alongside the data that we make available by default here within the Environmental Data Mapper. So the tool we're going to be looking at can be found up here in the upper left. It's just called the AddData shapefile or web data. And it's going to default when you open it to the search tab. And there's really three tabs, and these three tabs correspond with ArcGIS Online content. Full disclaimer, for most of these, you will need an ArcGIS Online account. And if you don't have that, you can either get one or you unfortunately might be out of luck if it's something that you can't obtain. But a lot of the layers here are hosted by Esri, and they do require that ArcGIS Online user account login. We can see that, and you can test for it when you hit add for a layer. If it prompts you for this, you know it's going to require that login. Some layers and some data types don't, so I still encourage you, if you search for something that looks relevant, try it out. Worst case scenario, if you don't have it, you won't be able to add it. And if you do, great, you can add it in. The other two, and probably more commonly used data layer data types that you can add in using this tool are URL, which is going to look for a variety of web services. Defaults to an ArcGIS server web service, which can be a feature service, REST service, tiled service, anything like that. WMS, WFS, KML file, GeoRSS, or CSV file. Those last three still have to be provided in the form of like a URL service though. And last but not least, a file upload, which is going to look for a local, or it's going to ask you for a local file that you have available on your workstation to upload for viewing within the EDM. And we see some of those file extensions here, but we'll come back to that in a second. So I'm going to go back to the URL tab here, and I'm just going to leave it on the default ArcGIS Server web service. I happen to have such a REST service up here. All you have to do is copy the URL. Just ensure that the URL ends in a / number, and that means you're actually grabbing the layer itself and not like a container or a group or something like that, because this requires you to add an individual layer at a time. So here I can see I'm grabbing layer 0, and you can see also matches the facilities here, 0. And this is actually EPA's underground storage tank data that's hosted on ArcGIS Online as a REST service. So I'm going to copy that URL, come back in here, and I simply paste that in. You can see that we pasted in that entire URL. Once I hit add, you can see that almost instantly it's added as a new layer within the layer list. And now it's drawing, it's a rather large, nationwide layer. So we'll zoom in here, speed it up a little bit. And for example, here we are in Lynchburg, and we can see those underground storage tanks. So this is actually coming from EPA's ArcGIS Server REST service that we looked at here. And we pulled it in to be able to visualize and work with interactively within the EDM. Additionally, anything you add in also supports click pop-ups. So I just selected a random underground storage tank facility location, and here's the pop-up coming from EPA with the attribution that they make available. I'll add in one other here, just another example. This is actually coming from VCU's Healthy Waters data. It's another point-based data set, but again, this should work for point line, polygon, as long as it's a compatible map service, feature service type data set. And we can see it's added up here along with the symbology that's provided at their REST endpoint. And here's a few features that we see drawn out here. We know that these are healthy waters, so if I click this, again, here's the attribution coming from VCU's REST endpoint. So a neat way to go out there, pull in other data, be able to kind of compare it and visualize it alongside the data that we make available. So last but not least, I'll go ahead and turn these off so we can turn off those layers that we just added if we don't want to see them. And again, last but not least is the file upload option. And this is going to be particular. It's going to require data to be in certain formats or certain file extension types. If you're going to upload a shapefile, make sure that it's a compressed or zip shapefile, and make sure that it contains all the necessary shapefile file extensions, the .shp, dbf, prj, all of those file extension types. Next is the CSV file, so comma separated value, KML, kind of like Google Earth type spatial data, GPX or GPS style data, and finally GeoJSON. Um, for this demo, I'm going to upload a zipped up shapefile that I have. This happens to be a line shapefile. And again, contained within the zip folder is all of those necessary shapefile extensions. All you have to do is select it, and we can see that it's a rather quick add. So here it is. Here's that line feature that kind of intersects or bisects Bedford and Lynchburg. And again, just like those other features that we added, it supports clicking for pop-up information. This one really doesn't have much, just an FID of 0 and no name. But if it had additional attribution, you'd be able to see it there. So once again, pretty neat functionality for being relatively straightforward. We'll get into this a little bit later in one of the more advanced videos that we're going to cover, but once you add in a new layer here, it actually opens it up the potential for it to be used in some of our other tools. Like you can see here that once you have added in, again, this was a single layer, this single zipped line shapefile, but now that I've added in, I can make it selectable. I can actually go in and select that feature. I've selected Bedford County as well, somewhat on accident. And now that that's been selected, I can pass that as a input to like our set location to look for things that might fall within a buffer criteria of that feature. So as soon as you add in local data, it actually becomes like an operable data layer within the EDM that you can do all sorts of things. Whether you can do spatial analysis, you can look for other data sets that are within distances and buffers of that feature, things like that. So literally what I did is I just clicked on that single selected line that I uploaded, and I've created a 100-foot buffer. If I wanted to extend that out to 1,000 feet, I could do so. And you see here that I've built that buffer, and here's all the qualifying records that meet that criteria. So really powerful way to compare data here and kind of look at local and external REST endpoint data. So that's the nutshell, the functionality available within the Add Data tool. I hope that this was helpful, and we'll see you back for the next video.